Good morning, my friends. Welcome back to the Knitting and Grieving podcast. My name is Mira. This is the Dead Knitter Society podcast channel on the YouTubes, and I'm so happy that you are here. This is my little corner of the internet where grief and fiber arts and other kinds of making now intersect. So it's been a little crazy. I don't know if you are also in the experience of the back to school whirlwind. Of the 5 members of my household, my middle child started his junior year of high school this week, and his cross country season started with a scrimmage yesterday. Had a really strong race, very proud of him. Myself and then the 2 girls are starting school on Tuesday. My oldest is starting her senior year of college, and then the youngest is also a junior in high school. She and my son, we call them Irish step twins because they're 9 months apart, but in the same grade because of where their birthdays fall. So she starts Tuesday in a different school district, but also has her fall sports is in full swing. I think she's at a play day for field hockey today. So it's a little wild. And then my husband's classes, he's also working on a degree right now. I think he starts in 2 weeks. So a little bit of mayhem. I was capitalizing on this 1 week that I had in between summer semester and fall semester. And it was occurring to me that because I was laid off, this week was the first time since I believe we took my mother back home to Rome in December of 2023 that I have not had a job or school happening for myself amongst everything else that goes on in my life. So I have definitely been feeling, I think, just kind of the buildup of exhaustion. Cheers to morning coffee. If you have your cozy beverage, please do indulge. So yeah, I've been trying to just a lot of rest. I'm having kind of some hiccups in my surgical recovery. What is the date? So yesterday was 5 months. And I had been kind of, I think, just bulldozing through and telling myself that I actually felt better than I have been feeling. Because I am definitely not back to 100% yet, but my surgeon also told me that like really it takes a full year to be like 100% back. But at about 6 months, you're like 90%. And right now I'd feel like I'm 70%. So such is life. Sometimes bodies just don't heal on the timelines that we want them to. You can see Baxter's hanging out in the background there. So I'm not wearing a hand knit this morning. It is that weird, like New England, it is clammy, it was raining, there's blue sky out my window now, but it's still, there's a chill, but I didn't want like a full-on sweater, and I am noting in my wardrobe that I need more cardigans. This was actually one of my mom's, like, it's a commercially made, but sometimes when there's that little chill, I just like putting on something of my mom's, because it makes me feel close to her. So there's that. I also wanted to share, so during the panini, my daughter was going into her junior year of high school at that time, and she was supposed to be taking chemistry, and now she was doing it from home, and she was freaking out. So I got soap making kits so that we could explain the chemistry of saponification and have like a hands-on real thing. And so for probably a couple years, I think, I was doing like little cottage craft soap business. My shop is on vacation. I'm not sure that I will ever do that again. The scaling necessary to make like a cottage craft into something that actually pays you and doesn't cost you money is wild. But I love making. That's, why, hi Margie. Little Margot is like down here. I love making, I love tinkering, and we were running out of soap. So I made a batch for the first time in a long while. This is just like I threw it in a mold. I wish that there was smell-o-vision. This is like a lavender lemongrass blend, which is just really like you get that calm lavender. but then there's also just the brightness of the lemongrass is really nice. And this is a riff on like a coconut milk like face soap that's really moisturizing. It has a high super fat content. Anyway, this isn't a soap making channel. That probably means nothing to you. But I was really happy that I did like get my act together to make some soap. What have I been working on? Holy sweet mother of God. There's so much going on. I think not having a job has like, excuse me, morning tickles. Not having a job right now has like unleashed the kraken of my ADHD needing to be doing things. So let me show you first. I really have to start with the spinning, I think, because what I've been working on is related to the spinning. So I just want to show you a little comparison of like that I am really improving pretty quickly. We were in Vermont. I spun this late last week. This was early the week before. And you can see that I'm getting more consistent. I really am. Like this has a lot of slubs where either the wheel like slowed down or I needed to like add more fiber. And there are a couple thick, thin spots here, but this is really learning to slow down my treadle has been huge. I think I may actually ply these together. By the way, this is my hack for not having enough bobbins. I've just been putting them on toilet rolls and then I ply them off of these. So big improvements. This is still on the flyer, but I just plied this beauty. Now this is only an ounce of fiber. I was just using up what I had bought many years ago. And this was actually a little bit felted. So there were some parts that were tough, but look at this. This is from Sweet Georgia. And this was one of their like color samples. I love this colorway and I really want to figure out what it's called because I want more of this. It's my colors. I love this, but if we can just talk about like how much better. So this is plied together and I am right now just doing a short forward draw or draft because I'm trying to get some muscle memory in that before I start learning other ways to draft fiber. If I can compare that with what I had put on a post earlier this week, like my yarn is really getting so much better. I'm so proud of this. I'm so proud of this. I can't even tell you. So this was, I ended up washing this. I thwacked it. I balled it up and I am doing the crown decreases on my nephew's birthday hat. So my niece got a birthday hat with yarn that I got at the Fiber Fest from Sassy Black Yarns, and she loved it. And then Tommy, whose birthday is this coming week, he's turning 7, and I love how this knit up. Like I'm really pleased with how this knit up. This little stripe here, it's subtle, but I ended up plying the color on itself and not with the gray Corriedale. I think I may do like the top of the hat with this. I didn't have enough to do a full round, so, or I might make like a little I-corded little tassel or something like that. I'm not sure yet, but I'm doing the decreases on this hat. I cast this on 2 nights ago, and I adore it. It's actually softer than I thought it would be. It's not too terribly scratchy. I was concerned that he was gonna like get something that was both ugly and scratchy, but I think it's charming and I'm really proud of this. Like I spun this yarn, guys. So cool. So there's gonna be a little bit of crinkling. I have been doing a little bit of deep diving into the YouTubes to find information about fractal spinning because I have some solid, so Four Hearts Farm Mainly Fiber was at Fiber Revival, but I was at the end of like my spending comfort. And I didn't get anything that day, but I noticed on their website that they have the Shanico fiber that I have heard a lot about. This is I want to say it's a Targhee and Merino crossbreed. It is an American bred and milled and dyed Shaniko, you can trace this fiber to America. And while I don't get rah buy American about a lot. I'm deeply aware of what tariffs are doing to our small businesses. But when it comes to the resources that we have that keep our green spaces green and our land not developed, I was having this conversation with my dad yesterday, actually, because there's a farm close to where I live. And yes, are the prices ever so slightly higher than the grocery store? Yes. Are we buying stuff that's grown on that plot of land that I would hate to see a subdivision go in if this farm doesn't survive the economy? So I make it a point within my budgetary realities to buy local when I can, and for fiber to think about where is the fiber coming from and what industries here and small industries can we support. Do I do some big box spending? Absolutely. We're about to talk about what's coming in from, the evil empire for a new crafting journey, but we'll get there. I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, so this is like these four beautiful colors. And I was like, well, how am I going to do this? Am I just going to like ply these two together? Or am I going to I don't have a carding board at this time. So I didn't know what I was going to do with this, but then I was kind of doing a little bit poking around and I was like, you know what? The search engine term that I put in was like, combine four. And then I got combo spin, but that's not really what I'm looking to do. And then I stumbled upon fractal spin, and I've heard that before, but I didn't really understand what it meant. And people were like, oh, it's an advanced technique. It's actually still just spinning. You just prepare the fiber a little bit differently, and it will make what is supposed to be like a spin cycle type, like self-striping yarn. And I love, this is their, what was this called? The Maine Coast is this kind of, I love this. I think it's so beautiful. And I have two of these. So I'm going to attempt a fractal spin, but first I am going to actually use the practice fiber that I had gotten to practice fractal spinning, and just get comfortable with like, how do I like splitting up the fiber? Because in in a fractal spin, you take like half of the fiber and you do it in like let's say you've got three colors, A, B, C, and then, but you've split that in two and you do A, B, C, A, B, C. And then you take the other half and let's say you split that into four. So it's A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C in shorter stretches. And then when you apply it together, it gives you that, wildly variegated, lovely look. So that's my spinning plans. Very excited about my progress there. My knitting progress. I've been working on the hat that I showed you. I am really close to finishing the body of my Silverberg. So close to finishing this. I have like 3 more inches on the body to go, maybe 3.5. And then literally it's like 20 rows of ribbing and then like 15 rows of ribbing on the cap sleeves. And this will be done. So I might not get it done this weekend, but I should be wearing this by the end of September, certainly. And then I have made 0 progress on these. I still feel like it's a weird like condom tip toe. Those are the large pad toe up. I need to do a little bit more and try to put it on my foot and see how I feel about it then. And so for finished objects, I forget if I actually showed you Maddie's hat, but I've got my knitting journal. I'll show it to you in a skosh. So I swatched for this. This is the back panel. So really it'll actually be like this. Back panel of my Turnstone tank in the Juniper Moon Summer Solstice. I did go up a needle size because I got nervous about the sizing. This will not have a lot of ease. And I was definitely, if I'd thought about it a little bit harder, I probably could have sized up one. So I am just knitting at slightly larger gauge so that I will have that slightly, little bit more room. But the straps at the back are I'll pick up stitches here when I am done. I think I have got 10 more rows of increases, or 20. I don't do the math very well. 10 more rows of increases to do for the shaping of the back of the armhole. So making some progress on this, very excited. So that's really what I've kind of got going on. I was at a funeral yesterday, and it's interesting to me how, like, being a grieving person makes funerals, it feels like wound opening. I remember very early in grieving mom, I think she had been dead less than a month, and a childhood friend of my husband's, their parent died. And this person had like founded the hospital that had the birth center that my son was born at. So I wanted to support my husband. I also had been positively impacted by this person's life. It was so too soon to be at a funeral. So too soon. But the only way that we find these things out is really by being in those situations. So my coworker and friend from my paramedic days passed away from occupational cancer. He had been in the fire service not even a decade, which is so hard because he was far too young. But really, sometimes I struggle with the far too young, because just because someone is old doesn't mean that their life isn't mourned. It's more expected, or you're prepared for it. But I don't think that actually expecting someone's demise doesn't really allow you to prepare for it. I think the shock is different. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody. These are my own musings, but witnessing other people's grief for me is still something that I really struggle with. Like now, as a, Tuesday was 14 months without mom. Not counting. Still actually counting. And witnessing other people's acute grief, I struggle with. I realized I didn't tell you so I don't really want to put my niece and nephew's little faces, but you can see her hat, and it's cute. It's very cute. And then Charlie is holding his pillow. So 2 of the 3 of that set of niblets. And then the third one they will all have a handmade from me this year. My other brother has 4 children, but they live far away, and I struggle with, they're not close by for me to know their measurements. And I mean, realistically, I may just knit them all rats, maybe out of the hodgepodge of beginner handspun that I have, and send them those for Christmas, because I don't want one set of niblets to not get hand knits and then the other one to get the hand knits. And things like hats are kind of generic. I can make adult size hats for the teenagers, and and probably make them all adult size hats at this point, because they're a little bit older. I think I got foam on my nose. Anyway, so yes, grieving is so weird. For whatever reason, the algorithm showed me video of so I don't know if you're familiar with Anderson Cooper's podcast, All There Is. If you are a grieving person, if you're a human being, actually, I thoroughly recommend this podcast. He talks about grief because he lost his father at a young age, his brother died by suicide, and then he lost his mother in 2019. And the introspection and the just keeping your humanity so at the surface of these conversations has really been very informative for me. And listening, particularly early in grief, being able to listen to those stories gave me a lot of language for my grief that I didn't necessarily have. So I do really recommend it. that can be like, if you don't like crying in public, maybe carve some car time for this. But so Facebook algorithm showed me the video of his conversation with David and Amy Sedaris, who are both comedians and writers. And they talk about losing their mom and their differing but similar relationship, like experience in this grief. There's some people coming to do work on my house, so if you hear the clanging, sorry. Yeah, I got a lot of good nuggets out of that one. The other thing that I'm kind of realizing, so we never did talk about my impending crafting journey. For some whatever reason, I was like, I think I want to learn how to sew. Story time. I remember being like a brownie in Girl Scouts, something like that, as a child, and Mom was our leader, and a few houses up the street neighbors were really, really good at all of the things that we were getting badges for. And I was not always very good. And so we had a sewing badge, and I could not for the life of me figure out the sewing machine or hand stitching. I was not good at it. And God bless her, but my mom was so intuitive with everything that sometimes teaching things was hard. Like when you know something so automatically, it can be hard to distill the steps down, which is why I taught myself to knit, 10 years after being exposed to it by my mom. So I always just kind of wrote it off. I had one little stint with sewing. I had this pair of jeans in high school that was all ripped up, and Mom told me that I had to clean my room or she was going to burn those jeans. I did sort of clean my room to keep the jeans, but then I ended up hand sewing patches across like the ripped parts of the butt so that it wouldn't be like entirely inappropriate. And then with some of that patchwork, I also made this not well constructed and probably not particularly modest patchwork tank top. Y'all, I was a hellion. I was not a good kid. So, but it, like, I didn't really take to it. I didn't really like it. I don't know. Teenagers, some things stick with you and some things don't. I think what I am coming to in this season of my life, being a motherless daughter and having a mother who had such a prolific body of work in all of these crafts, in knitting, in, she hand quilted king size quilts. She sewed all of our Halloween costumes. Talk about the big box purchases. I am a prime mom when it comes to Halloween costumes. She painted, she sculpted, she did so much, and it felt like I think in that insecurity of youth, I didn't know where my place in art was because the shadow was so big. And I absolutely could have just walked away from the shadow and found a different place. And I didn't then, but I think that part of my wanting to remain so close to my mom and also to kind of figure out who I am in that kind of artistic existence is I want to figure out how to do stuff. So, I had talked early kind of in the iteration of this podcast of figuring out how to knit like she did. And I think that maybe and I still do want to write out her patterns, because it's not that she never used a pattern. Her patterns were completely an oral tradition in her brain. And I would like to be able to make them more permanent. But I think that part of learning how to be a creative being, I think, is more the journey that I'm on. So I did order a sewing machine. I'm unhinged, you guys. And I took like an intro to sewing online class from Sew Liberated. And I'm going to just try and see if it's something that I like, because I did the same thing with spinning this summer. I've had that spinning wheel sitting there for so long. But now that I'm finally using it, and I feel like I'm taking the chances with the fiber that I felt like I wanted to be able to take those chances with knitting, but I didn't know how. And Mom was so good at it. So in taking those creative chances with spinning and maybe with sewing, I'm wondering if I can build that muscle of creativity so that eventually it'll come into my knitting life too. And I also think that sewing may teach me something about garment construction, which will be informative for pattern creation, or like garment, off-pieced, that's a ski term, like knitting creation. So we will see. I don't know if I'm gonna like sewing. I am going to find out. I am definitely in my fuck around and find out creative, artistic season of my life, because I just feel like our human existence should be beautiful and expansive. And I think that's something that Mom embodied. So I do have to go through, she had a whole sewing room, crafting room, like I need to go through her stuff. And I am going to see like what of the fabrics that have been sitting there for close to 20 years are still in good condition, washable, usable, whatever, and kind of use those as like some beginner project materials so that I'm not sinking, I am unemployed right now. So I don't want to like blow the budget off, completely off, but I'm also finding a lot of therapeutic value in this experience. So I think that's what I have for you this week. This has been wild. This summer has been wild. Like, I'm spinning, and I am brave enough to actually like have the pattern printed out now for the first sewing project rather than waiting 6 years between getting the implement and then actually trying the craft. So I think I'm making some progress. I wish you so much peace and so much joy, and in your grieving seasons, I wish that your grief is gentle with you and that you can be gentle with it. As always, I'm so glad that you're here. Please like, subscribe, etc. And I will see you next time. Have the most wonderful week.